What's up guys, and welcome to the We Want Picks YouTube channel. I am Artem MMA Analysis, and I'm going to be talking about Dana White's Contender Series 2022 Week 4. If you don't know who I am, I made a video on the We Want Picks channel for Week 2, Week 3, and now we're going to be talking about Week 4. So let's just talk about my results before we get into the picks. Last week I went a perfect 5-0. Pretty happy with all of my picks. I picked all of the winners to win correctly. You can check out the video about that before. Week 2 I did go 3-2 in my correct predictions. And in week 1 I went 4-1, so I'd say I'm doing pretty good for Contender Series this year. Hopefully we can continue that. We've got a really good card going on. Thomas Paul versus Esteban Britovich is almost guaranteed to finish. Both guys have a 100% finish rate. Both guys have never been the distance as well. I'm also very excited for Jack Cartwright versus Jose Johnson, but we'll get into those fights later. Let's just get straight into my predictions. And in the first matchup of the night, we've got Nazim Sadikov taking on Ahmad, Suhail, Hassanzada. And I think that this fight is gonna low-key be a banger. Nazim Sadikov is a very powerful striker on the feet. Ahmad Suhail Hassanzada, he's got a pretty good grappling base. His striking is somewhat unknown. I don't think it's as good as Sadikov, so he's probably going to be looking for the takedown. So we potentially have a striker versus grappler matchup here. But Nazim Sadikov is 28 years old. He's 5'10". He's 6-1 and he's got 4 wins by KO and 1 win by submission. On the other hand, Ahmad Suhail Hassanzada is 26 years old. He's 6'1", so he's pretty tall for the division with a 74-inch reach, and he's got 3 wins by KO, 4 wins by submission. Now, what we see out of Nazim Sadikov is he does throw very heavy hands. He's got a very striking-based game plan. He throws a lot of output, he throws a lot of combinations, and he also does throw, on occasion, some spinning kicks, but potentially in a matchup against a grappler where he does throw these spinning kicks somewhat sloppily. They're not very refined, where if he falls over, he slips over, potentially he could find himself in a compromising position against Hassanzada. But yeah, I think we can definitely expect some very exciting striking coming out of Sadykhov. I think he's going to throw a lot of power in the hands. He's going to throw his flashy kicks as well. He's going to be pretty exciting. I think Dana White will be pretty impressed with his striking for sure. He does have very good takedown defense as well, so if Ahmad Suhail is going to be looking for the takedown, Sadykhov has shown very good takedown defense in the past, and he has shown pretty good wrestling in the past as well. He does have 1 submission win on his record, so he can submit a guy defensively if he really does have to. Now, Ahmad Suhail Hassanzada, this guy does have great submissions. He's got 4 of them. He doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. If you actually watch a lot of his recent fights, he gets taken down a lot, but what I do like about him is when he's taken down, he works pretty hard. You know, he works hard to get up, but he also throws up a lot of submissions off his back. He's throwing up a lot of elbows off his back. I mean, we just saw last week Clayton Carpenter versus Edgar Chairez. Edgar Chairez threw a good elbow off his back and opened up Clayton Carpenter and cut him open. So yeah, that was a pretty good elbow off his back, I guess you could say. But yeah, I do think that the better striking comes out of Sadikov. I think he's going to be throwing a lot more damaging shots. He's going to be throwing a lot more output as well. Sadikov is pretty good. He does throw pretty good boxing combinations, and he does have a pretty long reach, which he does like to utilize a lot. But I feel like the game plan for Hassanzada will probably be to utilize the grappling, and Nazim Sadikov will probably want to have the fight on the feet. I think this is a very competitive matchup, and I'm very interested to know what the lines are coming out, because you potentially could have a pretty live underdog either side. But my personal prediction is Nazim Sadikov. I think that we're going to see a KO in this one here. Ahmad Suhail Hassanzada is a very live underdog, and he has fought some pretty good competition on his record, and he is a very good fighter. But I'm going to be picking Nazim Sadikov. He's a very good fighter. He's a very good striker. Very powerful puncher. He throws a lot of combinations. He throws a lot of volume. He does throw spinning kicks, but sometimes they can be somewhat sloppy and somewhat miscalculated, I guess you could say, or just not quite fully refined. But he's a great striker on the feet. I think for the most part, this fight will take place on the feet due to Nazim Sadikov's takedown defense, and Ahmad Suhail Hassanzada, he's got good wrestling, he's got good grappling, but I think it's not going to be quite enough to take on Sadikov. The majority is picking Sadikov to win on Tapology, and only 32% by KO, but I do think Sadikov is going to find a KO potentially at some point during this fight. Maybe the decision is pretty live as well, but I think we're going to see a knockout from Sadikov. He does throw with a lot of heat in those hands, and I can definitely see a path to victory for him through a knockout. So I'm picking Nazim Sadikov by KO in the first matchup of the night. In the second fight of the night, we've got Hailey Cowan taking on Claudia Leite, and the women's bantamweight division is definitely in need of finding some more talent, and I feel like Hailey Cowan or Claudia Leite could be a very good addition to the roster, but I think I just let it slip who my pick is. I'm picking Hailey Cowan, and I do think that she is going to get the win. What's so interesting about this fight, though, is I would say she's more of the striker, more of the kickboxer out of the two, and she's got more submission wins than Claudia Ribeiro. Claudia Ribeiro has one submission win on her record, but I would say that she's probably the better grappler out of the two, which is pretty interesting. Claudia Ribeiro is coming into this matchup with a 7-2 record. She's only about 25, 26 years old, and she does have 4 wins by KO, 1 win by submission. Hailey Cowan, on the other hand, she's got 2 wins by KO and 2 wins by submission. So what's so good about Hailey Cowan is what I like about her. She's very strong, and she's very good, and she's a very athletic fighter. She's very strong. She's strong in the clinch. She's got great kickboxing as well, and she does have good wrestling if she needs to use it as well. But what you do see out of a lot of women's MMA fighters, you saw it on Dana White's Contender series last week, you do see a lot of this clinch game, especially at the lower level. These girls do like to clinch a lot, and I feel like if that kind of happens, I feel like Claudia Ribeiro is probably going to be the one initiating the clinch situation, potentially to work her takedown, but I think Hailey Cowan is going to be too athletic and too strong for her. I think Hailey Cowan's the stronger fighter of the two. I think Hailey Cowan's also the better striker out of the two as well. She's got very good kickboxing, and she does throw a lot of kicks as well, does Hailey Cowan. On the other hand, Claudia Ribeiro, she does like to get takedowns. She does like to work her game on top position, and she doesn't mind stalling out too much. She does have a couple of wins from the top position. She does only have 1 submission win, as I said, but she does have good jiu-jitsu. She's a pretty good wrestler herself, and she can trip girls up in the clinch. But I do think Hailey Cowan's going to be too strong in the clinch to be able to mitigate those sort of situations. On the feet, though, Hailey Cowan definitely has a very clear advantage here. I think Claudia Ribeiro, she's just quite flat-footed. She doesn't have the greatest movement in general, and she is very hittable. She doesn't really move her head. She doesn't really move defensively too well, I would say. I think Hailey Cowan's just going to be throwing a lot more output on the feet, keeping Claudia Ribeiro at range for 3 rounds. I don't see a finish in this one here. I think Hailey Cowan will try her best to keep Claudia Ribeiro at range. I feel like Claudia Ribeiro in this one will probably trying to close in the distance and make it a grappling sort of affair, but Hailey Cowan's going to want to keep it at range. There is one massive red flag on this fight, though, that I am pretty aware of, and it did throw me off at first. Hailey Cowan very recently, about 2 years ago, lost to a girl that was 1-2, and that girl was like 38 years old at the time, so I do take that as a pretty big red flag, but she's made improvements since then. She has only fought once since then, and it was over a girl that was 2-0 in Invicta. But Invicta's a pretty respectable promotion. I think Hailey Cowan gets a win here. I do think whoever wins gets signed, especially if it is Hailey Cowan, because I do believe Hailey Cowan is very marketable, and she probably is the kind of girl that Jacob will try and shoot a shot at. But yeah, I'm going to be picking Hailey Cowan to win a decision in this one here. Claudia Ribeiro definitely does have a path to victory with her grappling. As I said, she does only have 1 win by submission, but she probably is the better grappler out of the two in my opinion, and I do think that and Hailey Cowan does have 2 losses by submission. Both of her losses have come by submission, so there's definitely a path to victory there. I will be picking Hailey Cowan, picking her to win on the judges' scorecards. I think the fight does go the distance, and we see Hailey Cowan take the decision. And now we move up to the card to Jack Cartwright versus Jose Johnson, and this was on my top 10 list of fights that I'm most looking forward to in Dana White's Contender series on one of my blog posts for the We Want Picks website. If you guys don't know, we've got a blog, and I do write for that blog once a week. But Jack Cartwright is the pick, but I think that this is going to be a very good fight, and Jose Johnson is potentially live for a knockout. You know, I believe in his last fight, he won by KO in about 30 seconds, which is absolutely crazy. In 12 seconds, actually, I stand corrected. But I'm picking Jack Cartwright here. Let's just talk about the fighters a little bit first. So Jack Cartwright, he's 28 years old, he's 10-0, undefeated, with 3 wins by KO and 5 wins by submission, and he has fought a very high level of competition as well, as he is the former Cage Warriors champion. Jose Johnson as well, he's 6 foot with a 74-inch reach, so he's very, very tall for this division, and he's got 8 wins by KO and 2 wins by submission, and he is also fought a very high level of competition. But let's just look through the guys that Jack Cartwright has been fighting. In my opinion, there's a very good reality where Jack Cartwright just gets signed directly to the UFC, but unfortunately he did win his last fight by disqualification, so maybe it's just a little bit too hard for the UFC to justify signing the guy off DQ. But he beat Sylvester Miller, who was 9-3 by DQ, but then he beat Gerardo Fanny, who's a really hot prospect right now. He did lose his last fight, but Gerardo Fanny is a really good win to have on your record, in my opinion anyway. Beat a guy that was 15-6, the 12-2 Marko Kovacevic, and a 6-2 Scott Malone over in Cage Warriors. Now, Jose Johnson as well, just to kind of look through the guys that this guy has fought, he recently beat Mo Miller, and if you guys don't know, Mo Miller was on Dana White's Contender Series last year. He made a pretty quick turnaround to Fury FC 53 looking for a fight, which was on the YouTube sort of series by the UFC, Dana White's looking for a fight, and Joseph Holmes got signed to the UFC off that Fury FC 53 card. And Mo Miller was probably expected to win this fight. I believe Mo Miller, if he won that fight, he would be signed to the UFC along Joseph Holmes. And look who just upset the party. Jose Johnson did. But what Jose Johnson has also fought is Mana Martinez, who's in the UFC. He lost to Ronnie Lawrence in the Contender Series. I will be talking about this fight a little bit later as well. He fought Rafael Costa, who's a pretty good prospect. Pepe Vargas, who has been in there with some really good fighters. Win or lose, Pepe Vargas has been in there with some great fighters. And you look down a little bit further down his record and you notice that this guy has had a 24-13 amateur record. That is crazy. Not the cleanest record in the world, but it's his amateur record. So you know that this guy has got crazy experience behind him as well. But even with all of that experience, the blueprint to beat Jose Johnson has been laid out, in my opinion. I think that it was laid out by Ronnie Lawrence on the Contender Series 2 years ago. He kind of exposed the fact that Jose Johnson does have somewhat suspect takedown defense, and he did get taken down over and over again in that fight. Ronnie Lawrence built up a crazy amount of control time and earned himself a contract that way. And we know that Ronnie Lawrence has gone on to do pretty good things in the UFC. He recently did lose, but he has gone on a little bit of a win streak in the UFC before that. And what Jack Cartwright does is he wrestles and then works a submission. That's kind of what he brings to this matchup anyway. I believe that's his path to victory, and I do believe that is what he's going to do. So Jack Cartwright, what he has is he's got a great submission threat. He's got 5 wins by submission. He's got a good jab on the feet, and he does have good wrestling. He does have heavy hands he can crack if he needs to, and he does use a lot of front chokes as well to kind of defend submissions that he may not want to be in. Jose Johnson, as I said, he's a very good Muay Thai kickboxer. He's a very good fighter. He does have a lot of power. He's got great Muay Thai. He's got great leg kicks. He's got great body work. He mixes up with the legs and the body, and he can be very explosive. He has got KO power. I mean, he just locked out a 4-1 Dulani Perry in 12 seconds in his last one. But the problem with Jose Johnson is I feel like, as I said, the blueprint has been laid out to beat him. Ronnie Lawrence kind of exposed that takedown defense, but it is Ronnie Lawrence, and the grappling defense does need a little bit of work. I think Jack Cartwright's going to work the takedowns over and over again and then eventually find a submission. So I think he's going to find a submission probably in like the second round is the round when I'm thinking, unless Jose Johnson just knocks him out. I mean, you got to think that Jack Cartwright is coming off about a year and a half layoff, give or take, and Jose Johnson, he's a live striker. You know, he's a really good Muay Thai artist. He's got KO power on the feet. There's an opportunity for an upset here. I'm very interested to know what the line will be. I am expecting Jack Cartwright to be a somewhat decent favourite. If you just look at the Tapology votes, everyone's picking Cartwright, but I wouldn't underestimate Johnson too much, but I definitely do believe Cartwright should lock up a submission. I think that he should look pretty good doing it, and I'm definitely expecting him to earn himself a contract. Former Cage Warriors champion, undefeated with a great record. I've been going on about this fight for 5 minutes now, so let's just move into the next one. The pick is Jack Cartwright, and Jack Cartwright by submission. And as we move up the card, we've got Claudia Ribeiro taking on Ivan Valenzuela. And this is a fight I'm not super confident on. If you guys do know me and you guys know my style, I am very, very honest about fights that I'm not super confident on. And I'm going to be open and honest about this one. This is a fight which I'm kind of struggling to get a read on because there's a very clear path to victory in my opinion for both guys. But the guy that I'm going to be siding with is Claudia Ribeiro. I do think he's going to get the job done here. He's 9-2. He's got 8 of those 9 wins, all by knockout. Ivan Valenzuela, on the other hand, he is a little bit more of a well-rounded fighter. He's got 4 wins by KO, and he's got 3 wins by submission out of his 8 total wins. And he's on a crazy streak right now. He's on like a 4-fight first-round finish streak, which is very impressive, I'm aware. But what I've seen about him in the past, especially Ivan Valenzuela, is as fights go longer, in the mid-2019 fight, and even the decision that he lost, he slowed down a lot, and he was very hittable in those moments, and he was very hittable in the times where he was slowing down. And I think that's what's going to happen in this one here. I do believe Claudia Ribeiro is going to be able to survive the first round from Ivan Valenzuela. And Ivan Valenzuela, he has shown a very somewhat suspect gas tank to me, and I think Claudia Ribeiro is going to outlast him and take over the fight from there. I've seen Claudia Ribeiro go into the 5th round and win by TKO in the 5th round, and I like that out of him. So let's talk about what he does well. Ribeiro, he's dangerous in exchanges. He likes to lure guys into a brawl. He throws a lot of hooks. It's not the most technical striking, I will admit, and it's not the prettiest to watch, but it works. You know, he has got KO power. He's got 8 wins by KO to start with. He throws in a lot of hooks, and he's throwing a lot of leg kicks, and he is throwing a lot of volume as well. But and then Ivan Valenzuela, he's a good grappler, he's a good wrestler, he's got very good ground and pound when he's on top. He does have submission wins, as I said, and he's got a good submission threat. His defensive grappling is pretty good, but I'm really not expecting Claudia Ribeiro to look for a takedown on him. I think Ivan Valenzuela is going to be the guy looking for takedowns on Ribeiro, which is a very good path to victory because Ribeiro's takedown defense isn't the flashiest in the world, but when he gets taken down, he's very good at getting right back up. So I think that's probably what's going to happen at least once in the 1st round anyway, is Ribeiro's going to get taken down and he's going to stand up. But Ivan Valenzuela, this is where all of the red flags for Ivan Valenzuela come to me, and why I am siding with Claudia Ribeiro is Ivan Valenzuela on the feet, he doesn't throw much output at all. Ribeiro is going to be throwing volume, he's going to be throwing his hooks and his power shots, and Valenzuela is kind of just going to be not throwing as much volume as him. He's not really going to be pressuring Ribeiro as much as he probably should, and he's also very easily hit on the feet as well. He doesn't have much movement. He's very flat-footed. He doesn't move a lot in general. He doesn't move his head too much. He doesn't move his body too much. I think Ribeiro, he's going to be able to knock out this somewhat stationary target in Ivan Valenzuela, and that's why I'm picking him. But as I said before, there's a very clear path to victory for Ivan Valenzuela in the grappling in this one, in my opinion. Claudio Ribeiro has been taken down in his previous fights, and he hasn't been fighting the greatest level of grappler in the past. And Ivan Valenzuela does have good grappling, he does have good ground and pound, and he does have good wrestling. So it's a very good test for both guys. It's a hard fight to get a good read on. It is at middleweight, and middleweight is somewhat lacking in new talent. I know they didn't sign Bonacao last week, but that's probably because they want to put him on another card because they know he's going to bring views. So I'm picking Ribeiro. I do expect him to be an underdog. I'm going to be very interested to see what the line ends up being, because last week when we had Jamal Pogues at the time of recording, he was about 75% voted against. Everyone was picking Renato Jr. About 29%, I believe, at the time were picking Pogues, and Pogues opened up as like a minus 300 favorite, and then all of a sudden the Tapology line flipped to like 50-50. But yeah, let's move on. I'm rambling a little bit. The pick is Claudia Ribeiro by KO, probably in the 2nd round after Valenzuela has a pretty good 1st round. And now we move on to the featured bout, or the main event of the evening, Thomas Paul taking on Esteban Britovich, and this is a fight you definitely should be excited to watch. Thomas Paul's 11-3, all 11 of his wins by KO, all 3 of his losses inside the distance. He's never seen the scorecards. Esteban Britovich is 10-0, 5 wins by KO, 5 wins by submission. He's never seen the scorecards either. Thomas Paul, he's a pretty good kickboxer. Obviously, he's got 11 wins by KO, but he has been submitted twice in his career. He stands at 5'7". Esteban Britovich stands at 5'10", and he's the more well-rounded fighter for sure, in my opinion. I think that Thomas Paul, what he does bring to this contest is definitely a lot of power. He's a very fast starter, and he does throw a lot of leg kicks, and he is very explosive. You know, he's got a lot of KOs on his record, all 11 wins by KO. It's also worth noting you may or may not have heard of this guy because he is deaf, and he also made headlines because he called out Conor McGregor a few months ago, and honestly, I didn't actually know about that until I started Googling him and doing my research, and there were like 3 or 4 articles about this guy calling out Conor McGregor. But we'll move on to Esteban Britovich, and Esteban is ready for the UFC. I am pretty high on this guy. I think he's a great fighter. He's also a fast starter. He's got 10 wins by finish, you know what I mean, and he's got 5 wins by submission. He's the much more well-rounded fighter in this matchup, in my opinion. Thomas Paul, he's a good striker, but when it comes to the grappling, it's pretty obvious to me that he doesn't really want to be in the grappling situations. I think that Esteban Britovich, he's going to probably exploit that. I do actually expect Esteban Britovich to look to grapple on this one here. He is a knockout artist, just like Thomas Paul. Both guys pretty much are the same fighter, but Esteban Britovich has that whole other world of grappling that I feel like Thomas Paul doesn't. Thomas Paul shares a great kickboxing background, a great skill set to knock guys out, and but Esteban Britovich, I feel like, also in his back pocket has a great grappling and wrestling background. I feel like that is going to be the key for Esteban Britovich to win this matchup. And I think even on the feet, Esteban Britovich is probably a little bit better as well. He throws more volume, he throws more output, and he's the faster striker as well. So I think that Britovich is going to win this fight. Honestly, wherever it ends up being, I think Britovich could probably find the knockout. Thomas Paul has been cracked and knocked out before. He could find the submission. Thomas Paul has been submitted before as well, and he doesn't really throw up anything off his back. So I feel like Esteban Britovich, he's got a very clear path to victory on the feet and on the ground. Thomas Paul's got a very clear path to victory on the feet, but he's going to have to knock Britovich out early, and I just don't see that happening. I do believe that Esteban Britovich is UFC ready, and he is definitely a guy that you can watch, keep your eye on if he makes it into the UFC, which I do think he is going to. I'm picking Britovich. I'm picking Britovich by KO or submission. I think he's going to get it done inside the distance. It's kind of crazy that most people are picking him by KO. I mean, he does have a very KO-friendly style, but only 6% people on Tapology picking him by submission, and half of his wins are by sub. I've got to go with him by just inside the distance in general. I think he's going to find the KO or he's going to get a submission. But either way, I think Britovich finds the finish and he gets into the UFC. But UFC's 155-pound division, that whole top 30 is stacked, man. So let's see if he can go on a run. I feel like anyone coming into the UFC's 155-pound division has to be ready to potentially be fighting in the most stacked division in the UFC at the moment. Bantamweight as well, I believe, is a very top contender. The UFC's 135 and 155 division are very stacked. And I feel like Esteban Britovich can maybe get a run going. I'm really excited to see what he can do. Or even Thomas Paul, if he gets a win. 11 wins by KO. Potentially 12 wins by KO if he wins this one. Definitely a guy to keep your eye out on. And so is Esteban Britovich. So, yeah, thank you guys very much for watching the video. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to We Want Picks. Check out the WeWantPicks.com website. We've got a blog. We've got so much information on there. And, yeah, I'll pass it on to the other guys, and they'll be talking about UFC and other stuff like that. I'm here for Dana White's Contender Series, so I'm going to see you next week for the Dana White's Contender Series Week 5 card, which I'm also very much looking forward to. So I'll see you in the next one.